Happy Canadian Thanksgiving! We've had a great weekend with our family, and guess what? We have some really great news to share with you today.
We have had some terrific developments with regard to our roof. One of the first things you notice when you come up to our house is the beauty and the complexity of the roof line and the exterior.
There are so many nooks and crannies and hills and valleys, turrets and impediments, and so many amazing details on this house.
If you take a look from the drone shots here, you can see that we have 5 conventional towers. Then you have the 2 turret towers and the big, huge hexagonal, or actually octagonal tower at the back. Not only that, you have 2 kind of horizontal ridge lines. If you get a shot here, you take a close look, you can see the pitch, is that right? Is the pitch of the roof is incredibly steep.
It is.
Like almost,
all of them are super steep.
Yeah, and that's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's fantastic for the way it looks, and it's fantastic for rain coming off it because it's coming straight down. But it's also incredibly difficult to get to and to fix.
It is, and remember, this isn't asphalt shingles just like how we do in North America. These are slate tiles, so just like the slate that you see in the Home Depot, stuff like that, not that thick. But these are what? Shingle on top of each other that are pieces of stone. That's what they are.
Yeah, in Europe, it's just a different way of approaching roofs, and it's incredibly complicated. It's also very fragile. Like if you stand on it, you can easily crack them. Unlike asphalt shingles, you can walk on, and so to repair them is very difficult. Now, as you know, if you've watched our videos, we've had some difficulty with the roof. We've had leaks, we've had
waterfalls coming out of the ceiling.
We've had birds coming in, and we've had a good amount of difficulty. And so that's led several of you to make comments.
You definitely need to repair your roof. If you don't, the rest of the work you've done is fruitless. Looks like you have some major problems that need attention soon.
Hope you get all the really bad holes fixed in your roof. I hate to see all your hard work go to waste.
I can't figure out why you don't get the house watertight. It's a mold petri dish.
Yeah. Now, when we hear comments like that, I kind of feel 2 ways about it. Like on one hand, you're kind of like, yeah, obviously we want to fix the roof. We don't want to have big leaks, and we don't want to have rafters cave in and stuff like that. But I also feel like if you actually saw the roof and how complex and complicated the infrastructure is, you'd realize what a challenge we're up against. And not only that, remember, it's slate. It lasts for 100 years. That's the good news. The bad news is that we're probably around year 100. Now, having a leaky roof in a chateau is definitely a problem. As you go around France, you can see lots of examples of beautiful buildings that once had glorious roofs that now only have a flat top. And what's happened is the water's gotten in, and then of course you have all these beautiful beams and these complicated structures. As soon as that wood gets wet, it's possible that mold or mildew or rot or termites or bugs can get in there and start to destroy the wood. You're looking at these videos and you're seeing examples of places where water's gotten in and the wood is decomposing. Now that's obviously a huge problem, because as those big pieces of wood lose structural integrity, they start to buckle, and then you can get in a situation where the whole roof falls in. Take a look at this. You can see that beam is bending. Someone came in there and tried to cut a bit of a hatch, and so they made the beam thin, and water got in there and animals got in there, and the whole thing is sagging. I saw this before I left today, and it was deeply troubling, so I actually went and got a board and just tried to brace it a bit in the short term. Look at this, the whole thing moves. You put it in there, and so we don't want a situation where the roof collapses, because that happens, and when that happens, then the water, it's like a death sentence for the chateau. So deeply troubling. As you look at these clips, you can see that we have had some water getting into the chateau, and there are places where you can see the sky, where there are openings. But we know that not just because we've seen the evidence from long times ago, we've experienced it personally.
So it was the middle of the night. We're all asleep. The chateau's all dark. It's dark in the countryside, no lights. All of a sudden, I hear Rob getting up, and I hear motion next door, and I'm like, what's going on? And it's raining outside. Don't think anything of it. I get up. Rob's already gone upstairs to the attic with hopefully his phone so he can have a flashlight. I go next door to one of our students' rooms, and there's literally, out of the crown molding, a waterfall coming out of the crown molding onto the floor. And they just look at me and go, what are we supposed to do? And you're like, you just woke up, right? It's 2 a.m. And you're just like, I don't know.
It was deeply troubling. I'm lying there in bed. All of a sudden, I feel water on my face. And it was splattering. And I'm like, that's not good. because we're like on the premier etage. That means there's a floor above us, and then there's an attic above that. That means by the time it's hit us, it's gone through 3 floors. Now, we figured out what it was eventually, and you've seen video here of how big of a leak it was. It was a massive leak. In fact, this video came from the next day when I went back because it was still leaking. And we were filling up that huge garbage pail in about 5 minutes. That's how much water was coming in. We had 2 of those going.
And that wasn't during the storm.
No.
That was after the storm.
I showed the roofers that video, and their eyes got wide. It's bad when you can scare your roofers. So we figured out later what it was. And we figured out that what happens is pieces of slate fall off the roof and they go into the gutter. And then what will happen is if there's enough water, the water will push the slate to cover the downspouts. And then as soon as the downspouts are covered, then the water runs over and it can go wherever. So that's what was happening. And of course, the water's seeping down all the walls behind the plaster. It took months to dry out. Yeah.
Oh my
we had
goodness.
mushrooms going out of the ceiling. And it was a terrible, terrible feeling.
Terrible.
Now, maybe you're thinking, well, man, why did these guys get into this if it's such a difficult job? We've asked the same question. No. Okay, maybe we haven't asked the same question. But like, maybe you're thinking, like, I know this one person on YouTube said, he goes, I'm sorry, he goes, people that usually buy chateaus are extremely rich or have golden touch, and you guys have neither. So maybe you're out there and you're thinking, well, what's the problem? Like, they have a leaky roof. Why don't they just fix it? I mean, we had a roof that was bad in America. We paid, I think, about $12,000. Guys came, we took a home equity loan, and they fixed our roof. Everything was great. And you're thinking, why don't we do that in France? The problem is, first of all, because the roof's incredibly big and expensive, probably about $250,000, and you can't take a home equity loan or a mortgage in France when you don't have income in France, which we don't. We don't make any income in France. And you can't take out a mortgage in America because the property's not located in America. So essentially you have to come up with the money. Maybe you're thinking then, well, why don't you just use some of the proceeds from like your study abroad program to do it? And that is complicated too. I'll give a better explanation at the end, but the long and the short of it is this. We're trying to start a nonprofit to help young people. So we charge young people a bit, but basically we're shooting to break even. It's a nonprofit. Now, Leslie and I don't get paid for this. It's a volunteer thing, so we don't have any income to put towards the roof. And we actually lend the chateau to the nonprofit for free. So we don't have any money there to put into it. So it's kind of tight. You're like, well, what are you going to do? On one hand, you're right. On the other hand, we're trying to do something for good. And we've been amazed at how people have come along with us and said, hey, we like what you guys are doing and we want to help out. So here's the good news. We've had some really good news the past couple weeks. One of the pieces of good news is we've had a couple donors come along and say, we like what you guys are doing and we want to donate some money to help you with this program.
The task. Yeah.
In fact, we've had more than $100,000 committed, which is incredible because, we were looking at this thinking,
I didn't know how many years it would be before we could get to the roof.
$250,000, that's a pretty big problem, right? And so we're thinking, maybe
it's a lot of pennies we have to save.
But even without asking, people have come forward and say, hey, and mostly it's people that know us and our friends and they believe in what we're doing. So, I mean, you guys don't know us yet, a lot of you guys, but we are trying to do a good thing and we're not trying to make money from this.
No.
And so we went to our board. We actually, when we started doing this thing, we didn't have like a nonprofit or anything. And then out of the blue, people were saying, hey, we'd like to support you. And so we're like, well, I guess maybe we should start a nonprofit so we can do tax deductible receipts. And so we applied to that, and we have recently just been instated again. And so that happened 2 weeks ago, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Part of that process means we have to have a board, kind of an independent board to make sure that money's being taken care for.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have to report to the IRS, by the way. You can get on your computer and Google us, Two Talent Ministries, and you'll be able to find us on the IRS webpage.
Yeah.
And how we spend the money. That's all public knowledge. So it's protecting the donations to go where they should go, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were talking to the guys in the board and they're like, man, let's fix the roof. The guys are like, let's fix the roof. Let's start a campaign. Let's ask some people for money and we'll get it done. And so we've decided to do that. And so I guess what we're doing is we're asking for your help. We went into this kind of trying to do it ourselves, realizing pretty quickly that it's a big project and also realizing that there's a lot of people out there that like to help and believe in what we're doing. And so if that's you, if you're listening to this video and maybe I don't know, you want to support this, maybe you just love old buildings and you know, preserving the old building, or maybe you love the idea of what we're trying to do with helping young people connect with, you know, each other and discover their word and read the scriptures and discover their world. And if you want to help out, we would love to fix this roof, and we would be glad to take your help. So if you'd like to help, there's a couple ways you can do it. I'll give more detail at the end of the video, but we have set up a web page and we have a button just for simple donations. You're also very welcome if you have a larger donation that you want to get like a receipt for and you want to run through the IRS, that's great too. Then you can send that, if you want, you can email us, we can talk details, give you an address. The email's on the screen and we're glad to talk to you too. So yeah, thanks for watching our video. This is very exciting to us, and to be honest, we've already started. We've got some money in the bank and enough to start the first thing, and so we got some quotes.
We did.
We called some roofers.
Yeah, in the summer, we did our homework.
They came out, and the first quote has come in fantastic. $28,000 for that beautiful octagonal tower. So we've already got enough in the bank to do that. So that's great, because that's the most leaky area, and it's also over...
Well, over our bedroom, it's over the Grand Salon, which I desperately do not want any water getting into that ceiling. I don't know if you remember it. It's all carved and gorgeous. I will just feel devastated if we do something to wreck that.
So it's the perfect place to start for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's the highest part of the chateau, so it's really hard for the roofers to get up there, and it's the most leaky, and it's also over the most beautiful rooms. So it's a huge win. We are going to be sure to put video up there to show you the progress and the beautiful black roof.
Oh my goodness, I can't wait.
Oh man, we're excited about that. So thanks for watching the video. If you'd like to get involved, we'd love to have you join us. No pressure, but yeah, we're gonna try to get this thing going. So how does fixing the roof help the nonprofit?
Good question. We have a lot of bedrooms on our main floors, but they're all full. Isn't that a good problem?
Yeah, we've had a ton of kids.
We have. So we're always full of that. We often need more staff, because if we get more kids, we need more staff, but we're kind of maxed out. So if we can start fixing some of the chunks of the different roof areas upstairs on that top floor where we have 12 bedrooms, then we can start fixing things up and then adding a bedroom even per session, which would really help a lot.
Yeah, we have lots of people that are volunteering to be staff, but nowhere to put them. And again, if you don't bring the students, then you don't have the revenue to pay for the program, and so the roof really is a linchpin, and we get that thing fixed, we can fix the rest of the chateau. We have more kids, more staff. It's a huge move for the nonprofit. So up here in the attic, we have tons of space. We have probably 5,000 square feet, maybe more, 12 bedrooms, and not just small bedrooms, like big, huge bedrooms. I think we're looking at 12. How tall is this? Let's count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, maybe 12, 14 feet tall. Big, huge roofs. Beautiful room. Great views. And once we get the roof fixed, then we can fix this up. We can redo the floor. We can rebuild the ceiling, which has caved in over time. And we can have room for a lot more students. I mean, potentially 20 or 30 more students. And some good rooms too. With good windows and good views. We've been thinking about this room. So Leslie's the decorator. She's the brains of the operation. But I think this would be pretty darn cool if you left it open. Or even better yet, drywall the ceiling so you have a nice, beautiful room. And then put like a spiral staircase there. And then put like a reading platform so you can go up into the tower and read. Super cool.
So normally when you take on a project, any house you buy, you think about all the areas of the house that need renos, you need to tweak, you need to demo, whatever. Same thing was in this house when we took it over. There were definitely certain things that we had to do right off the top in order for us just to even be able to have a program and have students come visit and all of that kind of stuff. The roof is clearly high on the list, but it's also a big high ticket item. So you kind of have to do a little saving before you can get to that.
We realize that having a good roof is critical, but we also need revenue from the program. So we had to focus on things like building a kitchen and having functional bathrooms and having beds and freezers and ovens and toilets. those things we needed to get revenue. So, it's kind of a tough situation. You don't want to wreck the chateau. You need to preserve the roof. On the other hand, you need the revenue from the students. So we had to be practical. So thank you very much for listening to this question. How do I help? We've tried to make a couple ways if you want to get involved. One of them is we're gonna put a couple of buttons on our webpage, a PayPal button and a Venmo button, and also we're gonna include an email in case you want to mail a check to us. By the way, our nonprofit is called Two Talent Ministries, and so checks would be addressed to that. So if you're coming from the United States, you can get a tax deductible receipt for that. If you want that, just send us an email and say, hey, love a tax deductible receipt. And we'll make sure you get that. If it's just a bit you want to give, or maybe help out a little bit, you could just click the button and send it one of those two ways. If you're coming from another country, I'm not sure if that tax receipt helps you or not. Probably not as much. We do have some ability in Canada to receipt, but it's a little bit complicated. So only probably if it was a bit of a bigger gift. But yeah, thanks so much for thinking about us, and we're glad to try to put this money towards this beautiful old building. Initially we were like, well, we'll just do this ourselves because that's kind of our preference.
Makes it easier.
People came along and they said, hey, I can't come and mow lawns, or I can't, I can't wash dishes for you guys.
Yeah. Or maybe you just can't travel abroad. There's so many reasons.
Yeah, but they're like, we like what you're doing and we want to get involved. Mm-hmm. And so we've been kind of learning on this too. We're not experienced with asking for stuff, and we hope we won't do this very much, by the way. No, hopefully this is the only time or close to it. Mm-hmm. But the whole idea of letting people kind of be part of it, it's a compelling point.
Mm-hmm. Partnering with us, be part of the journey with us,
yeah.
And we can maybe accomplish a task together, which is kind of exciting, I think.
Yeah.
When it comes to trying to get the house watertight and try to help inhibit mold growth, both good things, especially here in North America, we really, really can do a great job of getting things watertight. The problem with an old stone house is that everything needs to air out. Everything needs a nice airflow. So you can't really do the whole airtight thing there.
It's a different strategy because it's not, water leaches up from the ground into the foundation. It comes up through the stone, and it needs to be vented. Mm-hmm. And so when you go up into the roof, you'll notice very quickly that there's actually holes all over. Like air can come between the slate tiles. Mm-hmm. And so when folks say, yeah, just seal it up so you won't have any birds, you're like, that's really, really complicated. And obviously we want to keep the birds out, yes, and the rain out. But even when this thing is completely redone and sealed, there will be a certain amount of air movement that happens.
And the house needs that.
Yeah. Okay, I'm putting this question at the very end because it's kind of nuanced and it's kind of complicated, and some people probably just don't care. But we want it to be really transparent, and we wanted to talk about this issue because it's an issue we thought about right away when we bought the chateau, and even some viewers on YouTube have been perceptive enough to ask the question. On one hand, we get people asking us, hey, is this just a money pit? Like, are you guys losing all kinds of money with this? And Leslie wants to say no to that question, but I mean, it is spendy. You definitely don't buy a chateau as a financial investment, I don't think, because you have to spend tons. I mean, there's a reason why the market value is like maybe 1/10 of the replacement value. It would be incredibly expensive, millions and millions and millions to try to replace this building. But there's 40,000 chateaux in France, and mostly people don't want to buy them because they're so hard to heat and they're so hard to get to, and they're really hard to upkeep. So you're not doing this as a financial benefit to yourself. In most cases, it's more like a dream for people, or in our case, we're trying to help with the nonprofit. We're trying to help kids. Having said that, we're in a complicated situation where we need to avoid something called excess benefit. Now, this is an IRS rule, and it's a good rule. The IRS has to make sure that people aren't just donating to a person, like they're donating to a good cause, and that no people can use a nonprofit to benefit from their cause. So where it gets tricky is this. In the best kind of situation, we would have the nonprofit, Two Talents, buy the chateau and own the chateau. And then we could, when we fundraised for the chateau, we'd be asking for money for the nonprofit, and there's no problem. There's no conflict of interest because it's going that way. And by the way, that's our goal. If this goes well, if we have 10 years of good work here and the program is doing really well, we hope the program will buy the chateau off Leslie and I for a good deal. But the nonprofit has nothing. I mean, it's starting with nothing. So Obviously, it couldn't buy the building, and it doesn't really have a lot of revenue, so at least this point, it couldn't even rent it. And so that's why Leslie and I decided to sell everything we have and try to buy this thing, and then loan it for free to the nonprofit. So where that gets tricky is this. So for us to use nonprofit funds to try to fix up the building, that potentially could be a problem with the IRS, because that feels like excessive benefit, right? If the nonprofit puts a bunch of money into the Château. And so we're like, well, we don't want to do that for a bunch of reasons. A, it's wrong. B, we don't want to go to jail, or, the board members can all get like $20,000 fines. It's a serious thing. We got to take it seriously. And so we're trying to figure out, how do we make sure that the nonprofit wins and not Leslie and I? And so the board members had some good ideas. One of the first ideas they said is, why don't we create a lease agreement? And so, the improvement to the building is leveraged over quite a few years. So for example, and we're talking to tax attorneys and nonprofit specialists to make sure we get this right. But if we create a document that says Leslie and I will loan the Château to the nonprofit for free for at least 10 years, maybe 20, and then that sort of creates some value for the nonprofit. One of the other things we're looking at doing is creating a provision so that if we sell the Château, like say something bad happens, there's a plane crashed and we died, and the nonprofit would not be able to run without Leslie or one of us got very sick and we had to sell it. In that case, we'd create a provision where we had to repay the money put into the roof so that out of the sale of the Château, so that the money stayed with the nonprofit and not to us. Does that make sense? There's the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. They're both good. The spirit of the law is saying, you don't want a person to benefit from a nonprofit. And on one hand, I feel really good about that because we're not taking a salary and we're loaning it for free. So, renting a Château, Google it, rent a Château for 20 people for a month in France. That's a significant amount of money that we're not making. So I feel like we're not benefiting from it, but you also have to make sure you're doing things correct legally. And so we're being real careful about that. And I just wanted to go on record saying that, just so that there's not any questions. Best case scenario, the study abroad does great. And we sell it. Leslie and I sell it to the nonprofit, and they continue to thrive for many years. And Leslie and I just volunteer. I'd like to mow the grass when I'm retired. That would be my goal. Worst case situation, it doesn't go well, things go badly, and we have to sell it and fold. Then what would happen is all the money that belongs to the nonprofit gets given to other nonprofits, and you have to specify that with the IRS. So we're on it, and I just wanted to come clean and say that. On record, in case you had questions. By the way, welcome to my office, and thanks for watching all the way through for this whole video. That was a long one. I know we did lots of questions. Yeah, it's a super fun office. I like it a lot. What do I have? I have some chairs, got my degrees up there, and come around this way. I'll try to, I gotta be careful not to jostle this. Yeah, just some nice memories over time. More books, a couple of chairs, grad gowns. That's where I just shot the video, Leslie and I. And this is kind of fun. I'll show you a couple things. Let's start up here. That's isn't that nice? I was a faculty moderator, and they made and they commissioned a little painting of the two places we were living at the Grifferaie and then in the dorms at Maloma. And that's our little beach house. My collection of hymn books. That's Leslie and I when we were married. Yes, much younger. Some cool books, Go Riders, and that was my parents and also grandparents, some of the books that they've written and stuff. Lots of fun. Anyways, thanks for watching till the end, and hope you have a good week.